Hey friends, welcome back to Stones Hill Homestead. If you're new here, I am Kim, and today I am making a couple of pies to celebrate some birthdays in our family. The first one here you see I am going to be making is a Dutch apple pie, which has no top crust. It just has a crumbly coating on the top, and we're just going to do that and get this in a pie shell and mix these ingredients up. Now I've already coated my apples with cinnamon and sugar mixture and some lemon juice. And then this crumb topping here in the smaller bowl is your flour, your sugar, your cinnamon, and butter. And I'm going to be making that crumb topping, and I will sprinkle that over the top of the pie to make that have a nice crunchy topping, and that is what our family prefers. And so we're moving on to the crust, and the crust I'm not sure if I've made it big enough, but it is a family recipe. It's my grandma's recipe, and I will add that recipe in the description for you to make, but this pie it just never fails. I think back in the day, it actually probably came out of a newspaper clipping. I think it was called Champion Pie Crust. And it does have some vinegar in it, and it seems to always hold together. It's nice and flaky, and I always get a nice shaped crust out of it. And here you see me putting in this deep dish pie plate, came from Pampered Chef pie plate. And it is really deep, so it makes it very nice for this. You have a nice full pie. You don't have to worry about running over because it is so deep. And now you see I have poured the apples into the pie crust, and it is nice and thick. And I'm going to be now adding that crumb topping that I had those ingredients all mixed up in. I'm just making sure that everything's within that pie crust and in the sides of it for baking. And here you see I am mixing up that crumb topping. I'm adding the butter to get it all nice and crumbly. I'm just using a fork to mix it up. You don't want it so wet that it doesn't crumble. So I didn't add all the butter at first. I just want to make sure that it is, like I said, a nice crumbly topping for the top of that pie. And just giving it a good mix. And now you see I'm just checking that edge of that crust. I don't want this to fall out once I start putting that topping on. And I am going to really cover those apples, because once those apples start cooking down, it will absorb some of that crumbly topping down into the pie. But like I said, it makes a great crust, a nice crunchy crust. And if you have people that don't like all of that crust on their pies, this is a perfect substitution or option. And like I said, Dutch apple is one of our favorites. So we are just getting this nice and covered and getting it ready for the oven. And I've completed putting all that crumb topping on that top of that apple pie. And I'm going to use a pie ring to protect that thin crust around the edges of that pie plate. It's silicone. I bought it at some kitchen store, don't know where, but I know you can buy them just about anywhere, even in grocery stores in their section where they sell kitchen items. They have pie rings. And of course, I'm trimming off the crust that's hanging outside of that pie ring so it doesn't burn. And you could always wrap your pie edges with foil. And then I'm putting this pie on a cookie sheet in case it does boil over. You don't want to mess up your oven. So I do end up cooking this or baking this at 400 degrees for about 35 minutes. Maybe it needs a little bit longer, but here is the pie crust recipe. 3 cups flour, 1 cup Crisco, 3/4 teaspoons salt, 1 egg, 5 tablespoons of water, and 1 teaspoon of vinegar. This pie crust is an amazing crust for freezing ahead in balls, and then you can bring them out the day before and let them thaw in the fridge, and then you've got that perfect pie crust. And I believe back in the day it was called Champion Pie Crust. Now for the second pie, it is a sugar cream pie, and I am starting off with 4 tablespoons of cornstarch in this saucepan. And we need to mix that as well as 3/4 cup of white sugar. I use organic cane sugar, and there I am pouring that into the saucepan. And I'm just giving that a mix so they mix that cornstarch with that sugar to help keep it, one, from lumping and so that it dissolves nicely when I add all the other ingredients. And here I am adding 4 tablespoons of butter, and that'll melt in the pan. You can melt it ahead if you want. Does not matter, but that's where that goes. Now I'm working on 2¼ cup of half and half cream. And I'm going to pour that into the saucepan. And I believe that's 2 cups there. And then I will add the other half cup here, or excuse me, 1/4 cup. So 2 1/4 cup of half and half. And we're going to get this cooking, and we're going to pour everything together and mix it until the mixture boils and it becomes thick and creamy. Once we get to that point, then we will remove it from the heat and we will stir in the vanilla. And I'm getting that all mixed up now and melted down. We're bringing that up to heat. And we'll stir until everything's melted nicely. It is starting to thicken up, as you can see here, and it was several minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so. I can see it starting to pull up with my whisk, and I know it's thick enough now to get that in a pie. You can never stop mixing this. You have to be very careful. You don't want to scorch your sugar cream mixture filling. And I'm just going to continue to stir. I'm going to grab that vanilla, and I'm going to pour 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract in there. I also need to melt another 2 tablespoons of butter for the topping of this pie. And you will soon see what mistake I have made with this. And you will probably get a good laugh at it. It's a spoiler alert for what you will find at the end of this pie making experience. And I'm just getting all that filling scraped in. It tasted absolutely wonderful. It was so good. You could eat it like a pudding, like creme brulee right out of a dish. I really enjoyed it. I was so thankful that that we could do this and that I didn't scorch it. I was scared to death about that. It's a very hard pie to make. It really takes some time to get all of that melted without scorching. So you really have to be vigilant when you're mixing this up. So there it is. It is in the pie shell. I'm just spreading that around here. And now we will go get those 2 tablespoons of butter melted, and we will pour that over the top of this pie. And that is where you're going to have the crust on your pie, or the sugar cream top. When you put it under the broiler, this is going to help make that solid sugary type coating on that. So I got the butter spread around. Now I'm going to sprinkle cinnamon over it, and we are ready for the oven. Now we will be putting this under the broiler for just enough until the butter bubbles on that pie. And here is the spoiler alert. When you make a sugar cream pie, you have to bake the crust first. I poured all my filling into a raw pie crust. It doesn't work that way. So that second pie has happened, and I had to dish out all of the other filling out of the other crust and make another pie. So I want to thank you for joining me again today. And as always, be blessed and laugh as much as you breathe. Have a great day, everyone.